we discussed automotive sector, a little bit on pharmaceuticals, also manufacturing PPE sectors. Which industries do you feel are more likely to come back, to reshore to Canada?
Well, we've had some pretty good conversations in the general manufacturing area, auto parts and other parts, machine parts, machine tools, those kinds of things. Obviously, those are expensive things to produce anyway. And of course, there's a lot of concerns about intellectual property theft when you go offshore as well. I should have mentioned that.
Right, that's a good point.
So there's all sorts of reasons why the reaction when we launched this organization, Reshoring Canada, on April 24th, I was really surprised at the immediate reaction of the manufacturing sector, particularly in southwestern Ontario and eastern Ontario, basically saying it's about time.
Right.
That was action. It wasn't, why are you doing this, or what's this all about? It's, yeah, finally somebody gets it, that we've got to do a better job of reshoring.
That was
President Biden. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that was exactly my reaction and I was so pleased. I was like, oh, look, Tony's busy off doing even more things now. Not that you have such a full plate already. I said, sorry, this hadn't been done before. Like this, yes, this is necessary. Reshoring must happen.
Yeah, and it seems to be riding a bit of a wave right now. President Trump started the ball rolling with an agreement with Canada on basically working together on critical minerals and rare earth elements. When President Biden got elected, he's got a whole task force looking at what he calls friend shoring. Okay. And by that he means, not only manufacturing in the U.S., but also U.S. allies like Canada. And so they're looking at pharma, as you mentioned. They're looking at critical minerals, but they're also looking at the basic manufacturing sector to see what can be done to have a different supply chain mechanism. So all of these areas are in play right now, and there seems to be a lot of discussion going cross-border. We're going to be, we're doing a survey right now. We're just completing a survey of Canadian CEOs and Canadian companies of where the gaps are when it comes to supply chain. That's never been done before in this way. And once we get the results, we'll be able to advocate for better policies coming from the Government of Canada and from various provincial governments when it comes to supply chain.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear all of these things. You mentioned America and their friend shoring, and their closest friends, I suppose, would be Canada and Mexico. So I think of the CUSMA, basically the updated free trade agreement, if you will. And obviously Canada has a very unique relationship with the US and with Mexico. Are we taking advantage of all that CUSMA affords?
I would say no at this point. I think there's a lot more work that has to be done by Canadian industry. We kind of take it for granted that we can have access to the US market, but competition is fierce. And what's happening, as you probably know, Tanya, I think you've had it as a segment on your show in the past, is there's a big push in the US Congress that buy American. And if they're going to go with a $2 trillion infrastructure program in the United States and it's buy American, right, Canadian manufacturers could lose out. So there's a constant need to have that dialogue with American authorities in Congress and in the White House to make sure that we continue to have access. So I took it as a very positive sign that President Biden called it friend shoring. I've never heard that term before. I think he or one of his people created that term, but it's a good term for them to use rather than just saying everything has to be in America. Right. So hopefully that bodes well for the future.
Well, it sounds definitely less isolationist. So let's focus back on Ontario. Ontario is the US's third largest trading partner if you were to isolate Ontario on its own. How does President Biden's Buy American executive order put that relationship at risk, if at all?
Yeah, obviously, there's a big concern amongst Ontario manufacturers that they're going to be elbowed aside for a U.S.-based manufacturer. I've had discussions with the Ontario government about this, Vic Fedeli, who's the trade minister, but we also have Ontario agents in various key cities like New York City, like Chicago, like Miami, and I've had discussions with them because they have been working on an initiative in the United States about a North America-wide supply chain advocacy. And they wanted to make sure that reshoring Canada wasn't at odds with that. I assured them that it was not.
Okay, we're going to pick up this discussion right when we return.